I stared at the email from Lakewood Academy on my screen, my finger hovering over the mouse. Subject line: payment cessation confirmation. 4 children. Over $500,000. 4 years of sacrifice. And in return, my 8-year-old nephew had just thrown a menu at my chest and announced to a table full of people that the help eats in the kitchen. My hand didn't shake as I clicked confirm. After years of being treated like an ATM with no feelings, I was finally done. If you've ever been taken for granted by family, if you've ever wondered when enough is enough, stay with me. This is the story of how one Thanksgiving dinner changed everything. And before I tell you how I got here, if this resonates with you, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories about finding your worth, and drop a comment telling me, have you ever had to cut off someone you love to save yourself? Your story might help someone else find their courage. Now let me take you back to where it all started. I'm Claire, and for most of my life I've been comfortable being invisible. Not in a sad, neglected way, but in that quiet, competent way that makes people rely on you without really seeing you. I'm a software consultant specializing in enterprise resource planning systems for mid-size manufacturing companies. It's not glamorous work. Nobody asks me about it at parties. But it pays well, very well, and I'm good at it. Really good at it. My younger sister Monica, on the other hand, has always been the star. Growing up, she was the one with the perfect hair, the one who knew how to work a room, the one who could make our mother's tired face light up just by walking through the door. I was the responsible one, the one who did her homework without being asked, the one who worked part-time jobs in high school to save for college. Monica was the dreamer, the charmer, the golden child who everyone assumed would do something spectacular with her life. She did in a way. She married Jeff Stevens when she was 24. Jeff came from old money, the kind that whispers instead of shouts, the kind that shows up in country club memberships and vintage wine collections rather than flashy cars. His family owned a commercial real estate firm that had been operating for 3 generations. Jeff himself worked there in some vaguely defined executive role that seemed to involve a lot of golf and client dinners. I was genuinely happy for Monica when they got engaged. She glowed at her wedding, held at Jeff's family estate, a sprawling property with manicured gardens and a ballroom that could hold 200 guests. I wore the bridesmaid dress, she picked out a pale yellow that washed out my complexion, and I smiled in all the photos. I gave a toast about how Monica had always known how to dream big, and how I knew she and Jeff would build a beautiful life together. And they did build something. A facade so polished and perfect that it took me years to see the cracks underneath. The house came first. A custom build in Riverside Estates, one of those developments where every home looks like it could be on the cover of a magazine. 6 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, a gourmet kitchen with appliances that cost more than my first car. Monica documented every stage of construction on social media, from breaking ground to the final interior design reveal. Her followers ate it up. She had cultivated this image of effortless elegance of a woman who had it all figured out. The babies came next. Hannah, then 18 months later, Olivia. Another 2 years, Tyler. Then finally Emma, the surprise baby who completed their perfect family of 6. Monica threw elaborate birthday parties for each child with themes and decorations and guest lists that rivaled some weddings I'd attended. She dressed them in coordinated outfits for family photos. She signed them up for every enrichment activity imaginable. I watched all of this from a distance, both geographical and emotional. I lived 3 hours away in a modest apartment in the city, close to most of my clients. I visited for major holidays and the occasional birthday party. I sent generous gifts. I was the aunt who showed up with thoughtful presents and genuine interest in the kids' lives, then quietly disappeared back to my own world. Our mother had passed away when Monica was pregnant with Tyler. A sudden stroke, quick and merciless. In the aftermath, something shifted between us. Monica became more dependent on me in small ways, calling more frequently, asking for advice about parenting, sharing her anxieties about motherhood. I treasured those conversations. For the first time in our adult lives, I felt like we were building a real sisterhood, not just the accident of shared DNA. I didn't notice when the dynamic started to change. When Monica's calls shifted from wanting my advice to wanting my resources. When the questions changed from how do I handle tantrums to can you help us out with something. It started small. Monica called me on a Tuesday afternoon about 4.5 years ago. I was between meetings grabbing coffee in my apartment when her name lit up my screen. "Claire, I need to talk to you about something important," she said, her voice carrying that edge of controlled panic that meant she'd been stewing over whatever it was for a while. "What's wrong? Is everyone okay?" "Everyone's fine, it's just we have this opportunity and I don't know what to do." She took a breath. "Hannah and Olivia got into Lakewood Academy. Both of them. Starting next fall. I knew about Lakewood. Everyone in the state knew about Lakewood. It was the kind of school that guaranteed Ivy League acceptance, that had an Olympic-sized pool and a robotics lab, that rivaled some universities that sent students on service trips to build wells in Africa and study marine biology in the Galapagos. It was also breathtakingly expensive. Mon, that's incredible, I said, genuinely excited. You must be so proud. I am, it's just Claire, the tuition. Her voice dropped. It's $35,000 per child. Per year. We can swing it for one, maybe if we're really careful, but two. And we'd have to commit now for the long term, because you can't just pull them out after a year or two. That would be worse than not sending them at all. I waited, sensing there was more. Jeff's parents have offered to help with Hannah, Monica continued, but they're clear that it's only for their first granddaughter. They don't feel responsible for helping with the others. Which I guess I understand, but it puts us in this impossible position. Do we send just Hannah and create this inequality between the kids? Do we turn down this opportunity entirely? Tyler's going to be eligible in a few years too, and probably Emma after that. What does Jeff say? He wants them to go. He went to Lakewood, did you know that? He said it changed his life, opened every door. But he's also realistic about money. The business has been good but not spectacular. We have the mortgage on this house, both car payments, and his mother has made it clear she expects us to maintain a certain lifestyle now that we're part of the Stevens family. I heard Tyler crying in the background, Monica shushing him absently. I don't know why I'm even telling you this, she said. You can't fix it. Nobody can fix it. We'll figure it out somehow. But I could fix it. I had the money. I'd been saving aggressively since my early 20s, investing carefully, living well below my means. I had no debt, minimal expenses, and a healthy 6-figure balance in my investment accounts. What if I helped? The words came out before I'd fully thought them through. Silence on the other end. Then quietly, what do you mean? I mean, what if I covered Olivia's tuition? And Tyler's when he's old enough? Maybe Emma's too. Claire, no, I couldn't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. Do you have any idea how much money that would be? Over 10 years or more. It would be hundreds of thousands of dollars. I know. And I can do it. I want to do it. Another silence, longer this time. When Monica spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. Are you serious? You would really do this. They're my nieces and nephews. I want them to have every opportunity. If I can make that happen, why wouldn't I? Monica started crying. Real tears, not the delicate kind she produced for effect. Claire, I don't know what to say. This would change everything for them. For us. Then say yes. Yes. God, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. We talked for another hour, working out the logistics. I would set up automatic payments directly to the school. Monica and Jeff would handle all the other expenses, uniforms and field trips and whatever else came up. We agreed not to tell the kids where the money was coming from, not yet. Monica said she wanted them to appreciate the education without feeling beholden to anyone. At the time, I thought it was a reasonable boundary. Looking back, it was the first red flag I ignored. That first year, everything felt good. Monica called me frequently, updating me on how the girls were adjusting, how Hannah had made the soccer team, how Olivia had discovered a love for drama. She sent me photos of them in their uniforms, looking proud and polished. For Hannah's birthday that year, Monica threw a party at their house and made a point of toasting me in front of everyone, calling me the most generous aunt in the world. Jeff's mother, Margaret, even pulled me aside at Christmas and thanked me, saying it took a special kind of person to invest in children's futures like that. I felt valued. Seen. Important in a way I hadn't felt since our mother died. The second year, the calls became less frequent. Monica was busy, I understood that. 4 kids, all with different schedules and activities, would overwhelm anyone. I didn't take it personally when weeks would go by without hearing from her. I assumed she was just caught up in the beautiful chaos of family life. That was also the year I noticed Monica's social media presence had exploded. She'd always been active online, but now she was posting multiple times a day. Photos of elaborate meals she'd cooked of the kids, at various lessons and practices, of weekend getaways to bed and breakfasts, of the new furniture that kept appearing in their house. She had started a mommy blog talking about the challenges of raising 4 kids while maintaining self-care and personal style. Her follower count grew. Brands started sending her free products to review. She began every post with her signature phrase, living our best lives, choosing excellence every day. I liked her posts. I commented encouragingly. I didn't think too hard about where the money for all of it was coming from. Tyler started at Lakewood that fall. Monica sent me a brief text. Tyler's enrolled. Thank you again for making this possible. 3 words and emoji, and that was it. No phone call. No update on how he was adjusting. When I tried calling to check in, my calls went to voicemail more often than not. For my birthday that October, I received a text from Monica at 11 o'clock at night. Happy birthday, sis. Sorry this is late, crazy day. Love you. No card. No gift. No phone call. Monica, who had always been thoughtful about birthdays, who used to bake elaborate cakes and plan surprise parties, had forgotten me until the day was almost over. I told myself it didn't matter. Birthdays were just days. She was overwhelmed. I was being too sensitive. But it did matter. It mattered a lot. Christmas that year, I wasn't invited to the Stevens family gathering until 2 days before. Oh my God, Claire, I can't believe I forgot to officially invite you, Monica's text read. You're coming right. We have a photographer coming for family portraits. I drove 3 hours on Christmas Eve through a snowstorm, arriving with carefully selected gifts for each child and a vintage wine I'd been saving for Jeff. The house was transformed into something out of a holiday catalog. A 12-foot tree in the living room, garlands on every surface, a hot chocolate bar set up in the kitchen. Margaret answered the door, air kissed near my cheek, and immediately handed me a list. Oh good, you're here. We need someone to help with meal prep in the kitchen. The caterers are behind schedule. Not hello. Not Merry Christmas. Just an assignment. I spent most of Christmas Eve chopping vegetables and arranging appetizers while the family gathered in the living room, sipping champagne and laughing at something Jeff's brother was saying. Monica breezed through the kitchen, once grabbed a bottle of wine, and said, "You're a lifesaver, thanks for helping," before disappearing again. I wasn't in any of the family photos. When I asked about it, Monica said, "Oh, these are just for our Christmas cards. Just immediate family. I'm sure we'll get some candids later." We didn't. I drove home on Christmas Day alone, my gifts from them, a generic candle set that looked like it had been regifted, and a card that wasn't signed, just printed with "From the Stevens family." That night in my quiet apartment, I let myself cry for the first time in years. Not big dramatic sobs, just silent tears sliding down my face as I sat in the dark, wondering when I had become so disposable to the people I loved most. But by morning, I had convinced myself I was being dramatic. Monica had 4 kids and a husband and a mother-in-law to deal with. She was overwhelmed. This wasn't about me. Family meant supporting each other even when appreciation wasn't constant. I transferred the spring semester payment to Lakewood Academy, $70,000. I barely blinked. Year 3 was when things got noticeably worse. Monica's lifestyle had upgraded significantly. The modest SUV she'd been driving was replaced by a Range Rover with a luxury package. Jeff traded his sedan for a Tesla. The family took a 2-week vacation to Italy, documented extensively on social media, with photos of the Colosseum, the canals of Venice, the rolling hills of Tuscany. "Living our best lives," Monica's caption read under a photo of all 6 of them tanned and glowing, standing in front of the Trevi fountain. The post got over 2,000 likes. I knew their finances. I'd helped Monica organize some paperwork the year before when she was applying for a home equity line of credit. Jeff's salary was comfortable but not extravagant. The real estate firm his family owned was successful, but Jeff was a junior partner with limited equity. They had significant debt, the mortgage, 2 car loans, credit cards that carried balances month to month, but they were living like millionaires. And I was living in a 1,200 square foot apartment, driving a 7-year-old Honda, buying my clothes from outlet stores. I was on track to have paid over $300,000 toward their children's education by the end of that year. $300,000 that could have been a down payment on a house or early retirement or the around-the-world trip I'd been dreaming about since college. Instead, it was funding Italian vacations and luxury cars. Emma started at Lakewood that fall. 4 kids, $35,000 each. $140,000 per year. I set up the automatic payment like I had for the others. Monica sent a brief thank you text with a heart emoji. I began to feel it then, a low-grade resentment that I didn't know how to process. I was making their dreams possible, and I was becoming invisible in the process. At Thanksgiving that year, I brought my homemade pumpkin pies made from our grandmother's recipe. I'd spent hours making the perfect crust, sourcing fresh pumpkins from a local farm, carefully measuring the spices. Grandma Rose had taught me to make these pies when I was 10 years old in her tiny kitchen that always smelled like cinnamon and vanilla. These pies were more than dessert. They were memory-love tradition. Monica glanced at them when I set them on her kitchen counter. "Oh, you made those again." "That's sweet, Claire, but we actually ordered dessert from that new French bakery in town. Won an award or something. But sure, we can put these out too." She left them on the counter, forgotten. After dinner, when the bakery desserts were served on Monica's expensive china, my pies sat untouched. At the end of the night, as I was leaving, Monica thrust them back at me. "You should take these home. We have so much food left over." I drove home with my grandmother's pies in the passenger seat, and I felt more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. That winter, I saw a therapist for the first time. Dr. Sarah Chen, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense approach. I went in thinking I needed help managing stress from work. 3 sessions in, we were talking about my family. "Tell me about your relationship with your sister, doctor," Chen said during our 4th session. I told her everything. The tuition payments, the growing distance, the feeling of being used but not valued. "What do you get out of this arrangement?" she asked. I thought about it for a long time. I get to help them. I get to give those kids opportunities. What else? That's it. Do you get gratitude? Recognition? A sense of closeness with your sister? I didn't answer. "Claire, I want you to think about something. If you stopped making these payments, what would happen to your relationship with Monica?" "It would probably end," I said quietly. "And that terrifies you." It did. It terrified me because it meant the relationship I thought I had with my sister, the bond I thought we were building, was actually a transaction. I was paying for access to my own family. "Doctor," Chen gave me homework. "Before our next session, I want you to try something. Reach out to Monica. Not about money, not about the kids. Just reach out as a sister. See how she responds." I texted Monica that evening. "Hey, I've been thinking about you. Want to grab coffee this weekend? Just us. I miss talking to you." 3 days later, she responded. "Crazy busy with the kids' schedules. Maybe sometime in the spring." She didn't suggest an alternative date. She didn't ask how I was doing. She didn't say she missed me too. I showed Dr. Chen the exchange at our next session. "How does that make you feel?" she asked. "Stupid," I said. "Stupid for thinking I mattered more than I do." "You're not stupid. You're hopeful. But hope without reciprocity becomes self-harm." I thought about those words a lot in the months that followed. Hope without reciprocity becomes self-harm. I kept making the payments. I kept showing up for holidays. I kept trying to be the aunt, the sister, the family member I wanted to be. But something had shifted inside me. A tiny seed of awareness had been planted. That spring, I mentioned to Monica over text that I was thinking about finally taking a vacation to Ireland, a trip I'd been dreaming about for over a decade. Her response came an hour later. "LOL, Claire, you crack me up. You know you can't afford that kind of trip. Ireland is expensive. Maybe start smaller, like a weekend road trip." I stared at that message for a long time. You know you can't afford that kind of trip. I had just transferred another $70,000 to Lakewood Academy. I had over $200,000 in liquid savings even after the tuition payments. I could absolutely afford Ireland. I could afford first-class tickets and 5-star hotels and every castle tour in the country. But Monica didn't see me that way. She saw someone who couldn't afford a vacation. Someone who lived small. Someone who didn't deserve nice things. Or maybe she needed to see me that way. If I was comfortable, if I was thriving, if I had money for my own dreams, then the story she was telling herself about her lifestyle fell apart. She needed me to be the one who sacrificed, so she could be the one who succeeded. I didn't go to Ireland. I told myself Monica was right, that I should be practical. But really, I didn't go because I couldn't shake the feeling that taking that trip would somehow be a betrayal of the role I'd accepted in her life. Summer came. Monica posted photos from their vacation to the Hamptons. The rental house alone probably cost $15,000 for the week. In the comments, people asked how they afforded such an amazing lifestyle. Monica replied with her signature phrase, "We work hard and prioritize what matters." Excellence isn't expensive, it's a choice. I wanted to comment. I wanted to say that excellence was actually very expensive and I was the one paying for it. But I didn't. I never did. Year 4 began with Emma starting 2nd grade at Lakewood, Tyler starting 5th, Olivia starting 8th, and Hannah beginning her sophomore year of high school. $140,000. I set up the payment. Monica sent a thumbs up emoji in response. No words. Just a thumbs up. I saw Dr. Chen every other week now. We talked about boundaries, about self-worth, about the difference between generosity and self-destruction. She never told me what to do. She just asked questions that forced me to confront truths I'd been avoiding. What would happen if you just stopped? She asked one session. The kids would have to leave Lakewood. And they'd hate me. Monica would hate me. I'd be the villain who destroyed their lives. Or Dr. Chen said gently, you'd be a person with limits. A person who stopped allowing herself to be used. Used. That word rattled around in my brain for weeks. Was I being used? Or was I choosing to give? The distinction felt important, but I couldn't quite grasp it. Then came the autumn, and with it, the invitation to Thanksgiving. Not a phone call, not a heartfelt message. Just a text Thanksgiving at 5. Don't be late. And Claire, please try to dress appropriately this time. We're having important guests. Important guests. As if I was an embarrassment to be managed. I should have said no. Dr. Chen had been preparing me for months to start setting boundaries to stop showing up for people who didn't show up for me. But the people-pleasing part of me, the part that still hoped Monica would one day see me and value me, couldn't resist one more chance. I baked 3 perfect pumpkin pies. I bought a new dress, navy blue with a modest neckline, appropriate and tasteful. I wrapped it in tissue paper and hung it carefully in my closet, telling myself this time would be different. This time I would be welcomed. This time I would matter. Thanksgiving Day, I drove the 3 hours to Riverside Estates with my pies carefully secured in the passenger seat and a knot of anxiety in my stomach that I tried to ignore. The neighborhood was decorated for the holidays, every house trying to outdo the next, with elaborate light displays and oversized lawn decorations. Monica's house stood out, even among the excess, a massive light-up turkey on the lawn wreaths on every window, and what looked like a professional lighting installation that made the house glow against the gray November sky. I parked on the street since the driveway was full of expensive cars I didn't recognize. Carrying my pies, I walked up the front path, noting the new landscaping that must have cost thousands. Before I could ring the bell, the door opened. But it wasn't Monica who greeted me. It was a young woman in a black uniform and white apron, clearly part of the catering staff. "Good evening," she said professionally. "You must be with the dinner party. Can I take those for you? I'm Claire, Monica's sister. These are pies I made." Oh, her professional demeanor cracked slightly with confusion. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Stevens didn't mention family arriving with dishes. Let me take these to the kitchen and check with her." She took my pies and disappeared, leaving me standing in the foyer. I could hear voices and laughter coming from the living room, classical music playing softly, the clink of glasses. After a moment, Monica appeared and I barely recognized her. She looked like she'd stepped out of a designer catalog. Her dress was a deep burgundy, probably silk, with a cut that showed off her figure and jewelry that caught the light with every movement. Her hair was styled in loose waves, her makeup perfect. She looked expensive, polished, and when she saw me, her smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. "Claire, you made it." She moved forward and air-kissed near both my cheeks, a gesture she'd picked up somewhere in the last few years. "Let me look at you." She stepped back and I watched her eyes travel over my new dress. The dress I'd thought was nice. The dress that suddenly felt cheap and plain under her scrutiny. "Well," she said, her tone bright but her eyes critical. "That's certainly a choice. Very practical. Come on, everyone's already here. Practical." She'd managed to make it sound like an insult. I followed her through the house, noticing more changes since my last visit. New art on the walls, updated furniture, a massive new television mounted over the fireplace. Everything screamed money, taste, investment. The living room was full of people I'd never met. Couples in expensive clothes holding wine glasses, engaged in the kind of animated conversation that people have when they're trying to impress each other. I recognized Jeff's brother and his wife Margaret holding court near the fireplace, but everyone else was a stranger. "Everyone, this is my sister, Claire." Monica announced, her arm around my shoulder in a gesture that looked affectionate but felt performative. "Claire is a software consultant. She lives up in the city. Very career-focused, never really settled down." The way she said career-focused made it sound like a character flaw. Several people smiled politely and then immediately returned to their previous conversations. I'd been acknowledged and dismissed in the same breath. A server appeared at my elbow with a tray of champagne flutes. I took one gratefully, needing something to do with my hands. "Claire, let me introduce you to some people," Monica said, steering me toward a couple standing near the windows. "This is Richard and Suzanne Morrison." Richard is Jeff's new business partner. They just joined the firm. We exchanged pleasantries. Richard asked what kind of software consulting I did. I explained enterprise resource planning, but before I could finish, his eyes had glazed over, and he was looking past me, clearly searching for someone more interesting to talk to. Sounds technical, Suzanne said with a tight smile. I could never understand all that computer stuff. Monica laughed. Claire's always been the smart one. I'm just lucky I married well. It was said like a joke, but there was an edge to it. An implication that Monica had succeeded by being charming enough to marry money while I had to actually work for mine. And somehow her way was better. Jeff appeared, drink in hand, looking slightly flushed. Claire. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. He leaned in, lowered his voice. Monica's been stressing about this dinner for weeks. We really wanted to impress the Morrisons. Important for the business, you know. So that's what I was. Part of the set decoration for an important business dinner. Dinner's ready, called the woman who'd answered the door, now standing in the entrance to the dining room. Everyone began migrating toward the table, and I looked around for my place card, expecting to be seated somewhere near Monica or Jeff. Instead, I found it at the far end of the table, tucked between Tyler's spot and a chair marked for Emma. The kids section. I stood there for a moment, staring at that place card, and something inside me went very still. Monica swept past, pointing people to their seats. Margaret was at one end, Jeff at the other. Monica sat to Jeff's right, the Morrisons beside her. The other couples filled in the middle seats, and me at the far end with the children like an afterthought. I sat down slowly. Tyler was already there, iPad in hand, completely absorbed in whatever game he was playing. Emma bounced into her seat a moment later, 7 years old and vibrating with energy. Across from me, Hannah and Olivia were whispering to each other, Hannah's phone out on the table despite the no phones at dinner rule I'd heard Monica enforce in the past. The adults at the other end of the table were laughing, glasses being refilled, conversations flowing. At my end, I sat in silence, listening to the sounds of the iPad game and the girls' gossip about people at school I didn't know. The first course arrived. An elegant butternut squash soup with a swirl of cream and toasted pumpkin seeds. It was delicious. Professional. Nothing like the simple meals I'd shared with Monica and our grandmother in that tiny kitchen where I'd learned to make pies. This is so good, Margaret announced from the far end of the table. Monica, darling, you've really outdone yourself. Monica beamed. I found this amazing catering company. They specialize in farm-to-table cuisine. Very exclusive. They did that benefit dinner at the country club last month. Catering company. Of course. Monica hadn't cooked any of this. I ate my soup in silence, listening to the conversation flow around me without including me. The second course came, then the third. Throughout the meal, Monica dominated the conversation, talking about Hannah's achievements at Lakewood, how she'd made the honor roll despite taking all advanced placement classes. She talked about Olivia's lead role in the fall play, about Tyler's placement in the gifted mathematics program. She talked about Emma's acceptance into the advanced reading group despite being one of the youngest students in her grade. She talked about excellence and high standards and the importance of investing in your children's futures. She talked about sacrifices and hard work and doing whatever it takes to give your kids the best. And she never once looked at me. Not once did she acknowledge that the school she was so proud of, the opportunities she was bragging about, the excellence she was describing, all of it was built on my money, my sacrifices, my investment. I felt myself getting smaller and smaller in that chair, shrinking under the weight of my own invisibility. We're so fortunate, Monica was saying, her hand resting dramatically over her heart, to be able to provide this level of education. Lakewood isn't just a school, it's a community, a culture. Our children are surrounded by excellence every single day. They're being shaped into the leaders of tomorrow. Suzanne Morrison leaned forward, clearly impressed. It must cost a fortune, though. How do you manage it with 4 kids? For just a second, Monica's eyes flicked toward me, then away. We prioritize, she said smoothly. We make choices. We live intentionally. Some people spend money on things that don't matter. We invest in what does. There it was. The implication that I, with my modest apartment and my old car, was spending money on things that didn't matter, while she, with her Range Rover and her designer clothes and her catered Thanksgiving, was making wise investments. I gripped my wine glass harder than necessary. Hannah sighed loudly next to me, drawing my attention. She was scrolling through her phone, her food barely touched. Hannah, honey, eat something, Monica called from the other end of the table. Hannah rolled her eyes. I'm not hungry. Besides, we're going out after this anyway. Where are you going? I asked, trying to engage. Hannah glanced at me like she'd forgotten I was there. Party at Melissa's house. Her parents are gone for the weekend. Unsupervised. God, Aunt Claire, I'm 15, not 5. Everyone's going. It's fine. Monica didn't correct her. Didn't enforce any rules. Just waved a hand dismissively and returned to her conversation with the Morrisons. Olivia leaned across the table. Mom, can I go to Aspen with Brittany's family over winter break? They have a house there. We'll see, sweetie. You always say we'll see. That means no. It's so unfair. Everyone in my class is going somewhere amazing for winter break. Why can't we ever go anywhere good? I nearly choked on my wine. They'd been to Italy over the summer. The Hamptons before that. They took weekend trips constantly. But apparently that wasn't enough. Monica's smile tightened. Olivia, we've discussed this. We're planning our own family trip. Where? Somewhere boring, probably. We're thinking about Whistler. Skiing. Olivia perked up slightly. Okay, that's decent, I guess. Decent. A ski trip to Whistler was decent. Tyler, still absorbed in his iPad, suddenly shouted in frustration. This game is so stupid. Tyler inside voice Jeff called half-heartedly from the other end of the table. Tyler ignored him, jabbing at the screen more aggressively. I watched these children, these kids I'd been funding for years, and saw clearly for the first time how deeply entitled they'd become. They weren't grateful for Lakewood for the opportunities they had. They expected it. They demanded more. And Monica and Jeff were raising them to believe they deserved it all. The main course arrived. Turkey, obviously, but also a honey-glazed ham, herb-crusted prime rib, and more side dishes than I could count. It was a feast designed to impress excess for the sake of excess. This is incredible, Monica Richard Morrison said. You really know how to host. It's important to maintain standards, Monica replied. Especially during the holidays. Family traditions and all that. Family traditions. I thought about our grandmother's kitchen, about the modest Thanksgivings we'd had growing up, about the love and laughter that had filled that small space. This wasn't tradition. This was performance. Margaret raised her glass. A toast, she announced. To Monica and Jeff for creating such a beautiful life for their family. For their dedication to excellence. For raising 4 exceptional children. We're so proud of what you've built. Everyone raised their glasses. I raised mine mechanically. Built. What they'd built. On my foundation. With my money. Nobody toasted me. Nobody acknowledged me. I might as well have been one of the servers. Dessert was announced. The servers began clearing plates, and Monica stood gesturing grandly toward the kitchen. We have an incredible dessert presentation tonight, she announced. From Maison Belle, that award-winning French patisserie. They've created an assortment of pastries and tarts specifically for our dinner. The servers rolled out a cart laden with delicate desserts. Fruit tarts with glazed berries, chocolate mousse in crystal glasses, miniature cream puffs dusted with powdered sugar, and an elaborate croquembouche tower that looked like it belonged at a wedding. Everyone oohed and ahed appropriately. My pumpkin piece never appeared. As the servers began distributing the French pastries, another server approached our end of the table with small printed menus describing each dessert option. She handed them around politely, working her way toward me. That's when Tyler looked up from his iPad. He saw the server extending a menu toward me, and something in his 8-year-old brain clicked. He lurched forward, grabbed the menu from her hand before she could give it to me, and held it away. Aunt Claire doesn't need one of these, he announced loudly. The conversation at the other end of the table died. I stared at Tyler, my heart beginning to pound. Tyler, that's not... Mom says the help eats in the kitchen, he declared, his voice clear and confident, and then, as if to emphasize his point, he threw the menu card at me. It hit my chest and fluttered down to my lap. Time seemed to stop. I heard someone gasp. I felt every eye in the room turn toward our end of the table. But I was focused on Tyler's face, on his expression of absolute certainty, and I knew with devastating clarity that he wasn't being random. He wasn't confused. He was repeating something he'd heard. Something Monica had said. I looked up down the length of the table and found Monica's face. She had frozen mid-movement, her wine glass suspended in the air, her mouth slightly open. Her eyes were wide, but not with the shock of a misunderstanding. They were wide with the panic of someone who'd been caught. Monica. My voice came out quiet, but it cut through the silence like a knife. What did he just say? She set down her wine glass carefully. Too carefully. Claire, sweetie. He's 8 years old, he doesn't know what he's saying, kids. Just mix things up. What? Did he just say? Tyler looked confused, now sensing he'd done something wrong but not understanding what. The other adults were looking between Monica and me with varying expressions of confusion and discomfort. He's confused, Monica said, her voice taking on that soothing tone people use when they're trying to de-escalate a situation. You know how kids are, they hear phrases and repeat them out of context. Tyler, sweetie, apologized to Aunt Claire. But Mom, you said. Tyler apologized now, Monica's voice sharpened. But I had already stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the hardwood floor. Every person in that room was staring at me now, the successful business dinner forgotten in favor of this unexpected drama. He's not confused, I said, my voice steady, despite the rage boiling in my chest. He's repeating exactly what he's heard. Isn't he, Monica? Claire, you're being dramatic. Dramatic. The word came out louder than I intended. Your son just called me the help and threw something at me, and I'm being dramatic. Jeff stood up now, his face flushed. Now just wait a minute, Claire. Let's all calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. I turned to him, and he actually took a step back. Do you know what I've done for your family, Jeff? Do you have any idea? His mouth opened and closed. He clearly didn't know how to respond. Of course you don't, I continued. Because Monica has kept you all in the dark, hasn't she? Let you all believe that you're paying for this life yourselves. Claire, stop, Monica said, her voice tight. Not here. Not in front of our guests. Why not here, I shot back. In front of your important business partners. In front of Jeff's mother. In front of your children. Why shouldn't they all hear the truth? Margaret cleared her throat, her face pinched with disapproval. Claire, dear, I think you're overreacting. Children say silly things all the time. There's no need to make a scene. A scene, I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to my own ears. Your daughter-in-law has been calling me the help apparently to her children, and you think I'm making a scene by being upset about it. I'm sure Monica just meant that you were helpful, Margaret said, her tone condescending. You're being deliberately obtuse. Helpful, I repeated. Is that what you think? That I'm just helpful? I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking now with adrenaline. I pulled up my banking app, navigated to my transaction history. Let me show you all how helpful I've been. Claire, don't, Monica said, her voice desperate now. But I was done protecting her. Done enabling her. Done being invisible. Lakewood Academy, I read from my screen. $70,000 transferred on August 15th. And before that, $70,000 on January 10th. And before that, I looked up at the stunned faces around the table. Should I go on? Because I can go back 4 years. I can show you every single payment I've made. Richard Morrison was frowning, now clearly confused. I don't understand. Payment for what? Tuition, I said flatly. For all 4 kids. For the past 4 years. I've paid every cent of their Lakewood Academy education. Not Monica. Not Jeff. Me. That's not true, Jeff said, but his voice lacked conviction. He was looking at Monica now, understanding beginning to dawn on his face. It's completely true, I said. Every semester, automatic payment directly from my account to the school. Over $500,000 so far. $540,000 to be exact. I checked this morning. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Richard Morrison's eyebrows had nearly disappeared into his hairline. Suzanne looked between Monica and me like she was watching a tennis match. Margaret had gone pale. $500,000, Jeff's voice was strangled. He turned to Monica. Is this true? Monica's perfect composure was cracking. It's not, it's more complicated than that. She offered we had an arrangement. An arrangement, I interrupted. Is that what you call it? I offered to help because you're my sister. Because I wanted your children to have opportunities. And in return, you've treated me like I'm nothing. Like I'm invisible. I looked pointedly at Tyler, who was crying now, like I'm the help. I never said that, Monica protested, but she couldn't meet my eyes. Your son just repeated it word for word, Monica. Children don't make up phrases like that. They repeat what they hear adults say. So tell me, how many times have you referred to me that way? When you're explaining to your kids why their aunt lives in a crappy apartment, why she drives an old car, why she can't afford nice vacations. Monica's face was bright red now. You don't understand the pressure I'm under trying to maintain this life, trying to give my kids everything. With my money, I shouted, and several people jumped. You're giving them everything with my money. While I live in a 2-bedroom apartment and drive a car that's older than Tyler. While I skip vacations and wear the same clothes year after year. I've been funding your fantasy life, and you've been teaching your children to look down on me for it. That's not fair, Monica said, tears streaming down her face now. I've been grateful I have, you just don't understand how hard it is. How hard what is? How hard is it to say thank you? How hard is it to pick up the phone? How hard is it to treat me like family instead of like an ATM? I was shaking now, years of suppressed anger pouring out. I missed my own dreams, Monica. I didn't buy a house. I didn't travel. I didn't invest in my own life because I was so busy investing in yours. And what did I get in return? I gestured around the table. I got seated at the kids' table. I got my homemade gifts dismissed. I got forgotten on birthdays and Christmas. I got my pies relegated to backup status. And apparently I got labeled as the help to your children. Hannah was crying now too, her phone forgotten on the table. Olivia looked stricken. Emma had her hands over her ears. I felt a moment of regret for involving the kids, but it passed quickly. They needed to hear this. They needed to understand. Do you know what the worst part is? I said, my voice dropping to something quieter but no less intense. It's not the money. I could afford it. I can still afford it. The worst part is that I let you make me feel like I wasn't good enough to sit at your table. I let you make me believe that my modest life was something to be ashamed of. I let you erase me from your family while I paid for every privilege you enjoyed. I picked up my purse from the floor beside my chair. I'm done. Claire, wait, Monica reached toward me. We can fix this. I'll talk to the kids, I'll explain. Fix what exactly? The fact that your 8-year-old son thinks I'm domestic help. The fact that you've spent 4 years using me while looking down on me. The fact that you built your perfect life on my sacrifices and never once acknowledged it. I did acknowledge it. I thanked you. You sent text messages with emojis, Monica. You gave me a thumbs up emoji when I paid for your youngest daughter's tuition. Do you think that's adequate appreciation for hundreds of thousands of dollars? What do you want from me? Monica screamed. You want me to grovel. You want me to thank you every day. You offered. You insisted. I didn't force you to do any of this. No, I said quietly. You just took it for granted. You just assumed I would keep giving forever no matter how badly you treated me. You just decided that I was worth less than you, that my life mattered less than yours, that my dreams were less important than your status. I looked around the table one more time. At Margaret's judgmental face. At Jeff's shocked expression. At the Morrison couple looking deeply uncomfortable. At the children confused and crying. Enjoy your French desserts, I said. Enjoy your Lakewood education. Enjoy your perfect life. I walked toward the kitchen, aware that everyone was watching me. The catering staff had all stopped working, standing frozen with serving trays in hand. I found my pumpkin pies exactly where Monica had left them hours ago, sitting forgotten on the counter. I picked them up, cradling them carefully. They had cooled completely now, the top still perfect and golden. These pies, made with love and tradition and care, deserved better than this house and these people. Monica appeared in the kitchen doorway, mascara running down her face. Claire, please, you can't just leave like this. Watch me. But what about the kids? What about their school? Not my problem anymore, I said, and the freedom in those words was intoxicating. Figure it out yourself. That's what real parenting looks like, right? Sacrifice. Hard work. Well, it's your turn now. You don't mean that. You love those kids. I do love them. But they don't need more money. They need parents who teach them gratitude and humility and the value of people over things. And since you're clearly incapable of that, maybe public school will do a better job. I pushed past her through the living room, where the silent guests were still sitting at the table, out the front door into the cold November night. Behind me, I heard Monica starting to sob, heard Jeff's voice raised in what sounded like an argument, heard Margaret's sharp tones trying to restore order. I didn't look back. I put my pies in the passenger seat, started my old Honda, and drove away from that house, from that life, from that family, that had never really seen me as family at all. The drive home passed in a blur. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't fall apart. Instead, I felt a strange, crystalline clarity settling over me, like I'd been living in a fog for 4 years and had finally stepped into sunlight. By the time I pulled into my apartment parking lot, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat at my small kitchen table with my laptop and a cup of tea that went cold while I worked. I pulled up every statement, every transaction, every piece of documentation related to the tuition payments. $540,000. I wrote an email to Lakewood Academy's administrative office. Professional. Clear. Final. To whom it may concern, I am writing to inform you that I will no longer be funding tuition payments for Hannah Stevens, Olivia Stevens, Tyler Stevens, and Emma Stevens effective immediately. I have attached documentation of all previous payments made from my account. Please transfer all billing responsibilities to the parents Jeffrey and Monica Stevens, beginning with the December tuition payment and continuing for all future semesters. I request confirmation of this change in writing. Regards, Claire Richardson. I attached 4 years of bank statements, every receipt, every email confirmation. I wanted there to be no ambiguity, no possibility of confusion. Then I composed a message to Monica. I wrote and rewrote it a dozen times trying to find the right words. Finally, I settled on simple and clear. Monica, what happened tonight was the final straw in 4 years of being taken for granted. I will no longer fund a lifestyle for people who see me as nothing more than a source of money. Consider this, my formal notice. I have canceled all future payments to Lakewood Academy. Your children's education is now entirely your responsibility. Do not contact me unless you have a genuine, heartfelt apology and a realistic plan to repay every cent I've invested in your children's future. Until then, we have nothing to discuss. Claire. I sent both emails. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. I woke the next morning to silence. Beautiful, peaceful silence. Then I turned my phone back on and chaos erupted. 73 missed calls. 42 text messages. 3 voicemails. All from Monica, Jeff, and Margaret. The texts started apologetic, then turned pleading, then shifted to anger, then circled back to desperation. Not one of them said sorry. Not really. They said sorry I felt that way. Sorry I had misunderstood. Sorry Tyler was confused. But never sorry for what they had done, for how they had treated me, for the years of contempt, disguised as family obligation. At 10 in the morning, my phone rang with an unknown number. I answered. Miss Claire Richardson, a professional voice, female, efficient. Yes. This is Janet Wong from Lakewood Academy's administrative office. I'm calling to confirm that we received your notification of payment cessation. I wanted to verify that you are indeed discontinuing all tuition coverage for Hannah, Olivia, Tyler, and Emma Stevens effective immediately. That's correct, I said, and my voice didn't waver. I see. I should inform you that December tuition is due in 1 week and the spring semester payment is due by January 5th. Without these payments, the students will not be able to continue enrollment. I understand. The parents have been notified that this is now their responsibility. There was a pause. Miss Richardson, I should mention that our records show you've been the sole payer for these students for the past 4 years. The parents' payment information is not even on file. Are you certain? I'm absolutely certain, I said firmly. Thank you for confirming, Miss Wong. I hung up. 3 minutes later, my doorbell started ringing. I looked through the peephole. Monica stood there, and she looked nothing like the polished queen from last night. Her hair was in a messy ponytail. She wore yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt. No makeup. Her eyes were red and wild. I opened the door but kept the chain on. Claire. Thank God I've been calling. Why aren't you answering? We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about, I said calmly. Claire, please. The school called. They said, you canceled the payments. You can't do that. The kids need. The kids need parents who can actually afford the lifestyle they're living, I interrupted. That's not my problem anymore. But it's almost Christmas. They can't just switch schools in the middle of the year. Do you know what that would do to them? Hannah would be devastated, her whole friend group. Should have thought about that before you taught your children that I'm the help, I said flatly. Should have thought about that before you treated me like an ATM for 4 years. I never said that. Tyler misunderstood. Don't lie to me, Monica. Not anymore. Children don't come up with phrases like that on their own. They repeat what they hear. What you say when I'm not around. What you really think of me. Monica's face crumpled. Okay, maybe I said something once, but I didn't mean it like that. I just meant that you were helping us, that you were being helpful. In the kitchen, where the help belongs. Away from the important people. Silence. Claire, please, Monica whispered. We can't afford Lakewood without you. Jeff's company is doing okay, but not that well. The mortgage on this house is enormous. We have payments on both cars, the renovation loan. Then you shouldn't be living in this house. You shouldn't be driving those cars. You shouldn't have renovated. You've been living a lie, Monica, and I've been funding that lie. I took a breath. Did you ever think about what I was sacrificing? Did you ever wonder why I never went on vacation, why I never upgraded my apartment, why I wore the same clothes year after year? I thought you just preferred living simply. I was living simply so your children could live lavishly, my voice cracked. I have given you over $500,000, Monica. $500,000. And you know what I got in return? Contempt. Condescension. Being seated at the kids' table. Having my homemade gifts treated like charity donations. Being told I can't afford a vacation while you post photos from Napa and Aspen and God knows where else. We can fix this, Monica said desperately. I'll talk to the kids. I'll make them apologize. We can have another dinner. I don't want another dinner. I don't want an apology extracted under duress. I want you to understand what you've done, and I don't think you're capable of that. Behind Monica, a black Mercedes pulled up. Jeff jumped out, followed by Margaret. They rushed toward my door. Claire, Jeff called out. We need to talk about this rationally. There's nothing rational about what you've done to me, I said through the chained door. You've taken my generosity and turned it into entitlement. You've taken my love and turned it into expectation. You've taken my presence and made it invisible unless I was being useful. Now see here, Margaret started, her voice sharp. We appreciate everything you've done, but you can't just abandon these children. I'm not abandoning them. You are. All of you. You built a life you couldn't afford on my money, and now you're angry that the bank is closing. We'll pay you back, Jeff said quickly. Every penny. We just need time. If you could just cover this one semester. No. The word was final, absolute. I'm done. The kids will have to attend public school. You'll have to downsize. You'll have to live within your actual means. And you'll have to do it without me. You're being cruel, Monica sobbed. They're just children. They don't deserve this. And I didn't deserve to be treated like the help, I shouted, and it felt good to shout to finally release the years of swallowed pain. I didn't deserve to fund a lifestyle while being looked down on. I didn't deserve to sacrifice everything while you sacrifice nothing. Those children have learned to be entitled, ungrateful, and disrespectful because that's what you taught them. This isn't about punishing them. This is about teaching all of you that actions have consequences. Please, Monica begged. Please, Claire, their family. Then you should have treated me like family. I stepped back from the door. You have 5 seconds to leave my property, or I'm calling the police. You wouldn't. Try me. They left. They didn't have a choice. The next few days were a storm of increasingly desperate messages. Promises I knew they couldn't keep. Threats I knew they wouldn't follow through on. Guilt trips that no longer worked on me. I blocked their numbers. I blocked them on social media. I created a new email address and forwarded all messages from them to a folder I never opened. On December 1st, Monica posted on Facebook that they had made the difficult but important decision to transfer their children to public school, where they would get a more diverse, realistic education. The comments were supportive but confused. Everyone knew how much Monica had valued Lakewood. I didn't comment. I didn't react. I just watched the slow crumbling of the facade. Meanwhile, I started living. Really living. I opened a new savings account and watched with satisfaction as money actually accumulated instead of draining away. I scheduled that trip to Ireland first class this time. I went shopping and bought clothes that made me feel beautiful instead of practical. I looked at apartments in a better neighborhood, places with balconies and natural light. I posted photos of myself at a wine tasting with actual friends, people who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. The caption read, "Grateful for people who see me, not through me." I didn't mention Monica. I didn't need to. A month after Thanksgiving, I got a message request on Facebook from Hannah. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Aunt Claire, I know what happened. Mom finally told us everything. About how you were paying for school. About what Tyler said. About everything. I'm really sorry. We didn't know. I mean, I knew Mom was always kind of mean to you, but I didn't realize why. I didn't realize what you were giving up for us. We had to leave Lakewood. My friends won't talk to me anymore. Olivia cries every day. Tyler doesn't understand why everything changed. Emma thinks it's her fault. I'm not writing this to make you feel bad. I just wanted you to know that I get it now. What you did for us. What we took from you. I'm sorry. I read it 3 times. I felt something twist in my chest. Sympathy. Sadness. But not enough to change my mind. I didn't respond. 2 months after Thanksgiving, Monica's house went up for sale. Jeff's Mercedes disappeared, replaced by a modest Toyota. Margaret stopped commenting on their Facebook posts. The family's social media presence shifted from polished perfection to radio silence. I saw Monica once by accident at the grocery store. She looked tired, older, diminished. She saw me too. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the produce section. Then she looked away and hurried down another aisle. I bought fresh flowers that day, brought them home to my new apartment, the one with the balcony and the view. I arranged them in a vase and set them on my dining table where I would host my first dinner party that weekend. Real friends, real conversation, real appreciation. That evening, I baked pumpkin pies from my grandmother's recipe. Not for Monica's family, not for people who would dismiss them, but for people who would savor them, who would ask for seconds, who would thank me genuinely. As I pulled them from the oven golden and perfect, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the forced peace of someone convincing themselves they're doing the right thing, but real deep soul-settling peace. I had spent 4 years being someone's backup plan, someone's safety net, someone's help. I had spent 4 years making myself smaller so they could feel bigger. I had spent 4 years believing that love meant sacrifice even when that sacrifice was never acknowledged, never valued, never returned. Now I was done shrinking, done sacrificing, done accepting scraps of affection from people who saw me as an obligation rather than a gift. I poured myself a glass of wine, stepped out onto my balcony, and looked at the city lights stretching out before me. Somewhere out there, Monica was probably struggling with bills, dealing with disappointed children, facing the consequences of living beyond her means. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Respect is not optional. Gratitude is not negotiable. And family is not an excuse for abuse. I had learned that the hard way. But I had learned it, and I would never forget it again. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved to save yourself? Have you ever been taken for granted until you had nothing left to give? And when you finally stood up for yourself, did they call you selfish? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find their own courage. Remember, setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's survival. And choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real stories about finding your worth and reclaiming your life. And share this with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to stop being everyone's backup plan. Because you deserve to be someone's first choice, starting with your own.